assassins, slayers, gamers, and the return of a series after an 18-year-long absence, all on this week's Top 10 Light Novels in Japan. Hello everybody, and welcome to another weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. I'm Justus R. Stone, and on this channel I cover all things light novels, not just countdowns like this, but also news, reviews, and the light novel podcast gets posted here as well. So if you love light novels, or maybe you're just starting to become interested in them, you should consider subscribing. Now, only about half the list gets replaced this week, so not quite the full-on nuclear only one survivor that we had last week, but still we've got some shuffling and moving going on and a couple of new titles to talk about. In terms of these titles that we do have available in English, or even if we have just like in the anime or whatever, I'm going to put links in the description down below, so if you want to check any of that out on Amazon, you can go ahead and do that. At number 10, with 6,539 copies sold, volume number 5 of 86. This a story about two nations at war. One nation attacks with unmanned drones, and so the other nation needs to respond with the same technology. And that's what they do, at least according to the propaganda. But what they've actually done is taken people there less than desirables, shoved them into these machines, and there has been a great deal of casualties. And so it looks at these unknown soldiers, this 86 sort of regiment that is dealing with this war on the front lines and what they go through. This one has been licensed for an English release. It's going to be released by Yen On in March 19th of 2019 is the current tentative release date. I wouldn't be surprised to see this one get announced to have an anime sometime either before the end of this year, or I would say early, first quarter of 2019. I bet we're going to see an anime announced for this one. At number 9, with 6,593 copies sold, volume 15 of Rakudai, Kishi no Cavalry, or, as we had it released in English, a Chivalry of the Failed Knight. Now, we only had an anime released of this one in English. We do not have a license for the light novels. The anime was 12 episodes long and was available by Sentai Filmworks. This one about a magical academy that forces its students to begin pairing up, and this boy and girl get paired together, and it's about their developing relationship and how the boy, who is considered sort of a failure, how they sort of bring out the best in each other and their developing relationship throughout the series. I know a lot of you have said that you've been asking for this one constantly, especially from Seven Seas, who every month puts out their newsletter saying, recommend a series to us. Still nothing, but you know what? We're getting more and more light novels all the time, so all I guess I can say is just keep on asking. At number 8, with 7,208 copies sold, volume number 8 of Date Alive Encore. Now this is a new entry on the list this week. This is a very, very popular series, the Date Alive series. This is actually a spin-off, and it is a novel series of short stories that are set within the Date Alive universe. The main series is basically about these girls who show up on Earth that are incredibly powerful. They have the ability to basically destroy the Earth if they are let run amok. And so it falls to one boy to basically make them fall in love with him so that they don't want to destroy the world. This one, incredibly popular, and in fact, it's had 2 seasons of anime previously, and it has now been announced that there's going to be a 3rd season coming in 2019. I don't know. I know a lot of people have been requesting this series. It is a rather long series. There's actually 2 spin-offs plus the main series. I think and I know the main series is into the 20s in terms of how many volumes it is. But if the new season of the anime really kicks up a lot of interest, who knows? Maybe we will see this one get licensed. At number 7, with 7,416 copies sold, Volume 11 of Gamers. This one we do not have an English license for. There was a 12-episode anime which aired July to September of 2017 and streamed on Crunchyroll, and according to some internet searches, covered up to about volume number 5. This is a story that revolves around certain students and one hobby. Amano Keita is our lonely protagonist who has a passion for gaming and is friends with Uehara Tasuku, who is secretly a fellow gamer and is someone who believes his life is perfect. We also have Karen Tendo, the club president of the video games club, and Chiaki Hoshinomori, who constantly bickers with Keita. This is a story filled with a non-stop sequence of comedy scenes and misunderstandings. Our chaotic romantic comedy now begins. So this one, of course, yes, just looking at it's a slice of life series, basically focusing on people who are united by their love of video games. Which, again, I've said this before when this series is on the list, and I mean, it always is, so it's a popular series, but I'm always surprised that this one hasn't been picked up yet. I think we're still kind of lagging behind in the whole licensing of more slice of life type titles. Definitely I would like to support those titles because I'd like to see more of that kind of stuff come out too. At number 6, with 8,133 copies sold, Volume 6.5 of Yowa-Chara Tomozaki-kun, or that roughly translates to the low-tier character Tomozaki-kun. There's no English license for these light novels. Life is a bad video game. This cliché phrase is, sadly, a reality. However, life doesn't have simple, easy rules. What it does have is irrationality and inequality. The strong say that they have a lot of freedom, but the weak have no choice but to live an overwhelmingly disadvantaged lifestyle. Therefore, it's a bad game. There's no mistake because I, the best gamer in Japan, declare it. However, some person who is on the same level as me goes around saying, life is a great game. The school's perfect, strong-willed heroine, Hinami Aoi. Furthermore, she says, I'll teach you the rules of life's game. Normally, I wouldn't believe in those words. However, Hinami Aoi is a character that doesn't even fit in a normal frame at all. I kind of laughed when I saw this. I'm like, oh, 2 slice of life titles both focusing on gamers back to back on the top 10. And this is another one that I said previously when it's been on the list that I would like to see this get licensed. I'm guessing with 6.5, I'm guessing this is kind of like a side story in the series. That's usually seems to be how they number these ones, is that if it's a 0.5, it means it's not really continuing the main story, but it's like a story set during that time frame. So this one, again, there's not even an anime of this one, although given that it's starting to get up there in volumes, I kind of wonder if maybe we will see this one get announced sometime. This one I would probably say is maybe in the next year, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see it happen. At number 5, with 9,260 copies sold, Volume 21 of Shinyaku Toaru Majutsu no Index, or A Certain Magical Index New Testament. We do not have a license currently for this series. However, we do have a license for the prequel series, A Certain Magical Index. Of course, that one is currently airing its 3rd season of anime, which has been long awaited by fans. We do have that licensed by Yen On. I'm pretty confident, and I mean, I say it all the time when I talk about this series, but I would put money on Yen On licensing this, but that they're going to wait until they are finished Index. So you still got to wait for a while, but I mean, yeah, it's crazy how many volumes. Like, this is volume 21 of the sequel series, and we're not even done the first series here in English, but well, it's coming, and like I said, I get the idea that it has done well enough. I'm pretty confident that Yen On's going to be picking this one up when the time is right. At number 4, with 11,935 copies sold, volume number 8 of Goblin Slayer. This one was on the list, of course, last week. It has an anime which is currently airing, which, if you follow the anime community online at all, I am sure you are very aware of. This one about a adventurer in a fantasy world with the single obsessive mindset of slaying goblins. I mean, it's kind of obvious from the title. The first episode of the anime got a lot of people very upset. Admittedly, it had some very strong content, some very disturbing content that I really kind of think that because of the more almost moe art style, particularly of the female characters, I kind of think that maybe that's where some people weren't sort of walking into it thinking that it was going to have that kind of content. I mean, when you see sort of like something like a Berserk where the art style is that very angular and everything else, and like all the imagery they put out looks very dark and everything, I think that's where it can get away with being a little bit more violent and stuff like that, because people kind of expect that going into it. But with Goblin Slayer, a lot of the sort of pre-release artwork and everything else, I don't think it really hinted just how dark that series could get. And so yeah, I think a lot of people walked into it really having no idea that that was where it was going to go. We're going to be talking about this on the next podcast. We're actually going to be recording that, I guess, this coming Monday, so in a couple of days from now, and then hopefully I'll get it out within a day or two after that, because we're a little long, but, you know, we've had trouble syncing up our schedules. But yeah, we definitely want to talk about it, not just because of the controversy, but also because as a light novel series, a number of us actually enjoy Goblin Slayer. So we kind of want to talk about the differences and how it handles that material between the two. At number 3, with 12,205 copies sold, volume 16 of Slayers. Now, this is the series I was saying, 18 years since volume 15. This is one of those series that we look back historically and say it was one of the benchmark type series that brought us into this age of light novels. It was one of the earlier series that got an anime adaptation back in the 90s. And in fact, they've done like 104 episodes of anime, which, I mean, given back in that time frame was a lot. I mean, I know it's nothing compared to the Narutos and Bleach that we've had since, but still nonetheless, I mean, it was an incredibly popular series back in the day. This one, Slayers, follows the adventures of teenage sorceress Lena Inverse and her companions as they journey through their world. Using powerful magic and swordsmanship, they battle overreaching wizards, demons seeking to destroy the world, dark lords, and the occasional hapless gang of bandits. This one very much sort of like a comedy type series. Of course, set in a purely fantasy type world. The anime actually, according to people on Reddit, it covered about 8 volumes of the series, so about half of the available series of this book. I guess, though, they took a lot of liberties and also had a lot of original material as well. So I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to get this series in English. We did initially get the first couple of volumes of it from Tokyo Pop, and then of course Tokyo Pop kind of imploded, at least in North America, and that ended the whole thing. So I don't know if the series is kind of still stuck in limbo because of Tokyo Pop or what exactly has happened. It'll be really interesting to see whether, I mean, obviously 12,000 copies right out of the gate with this new volume that's almost 20 years since the last one definitely shows that there's still a considerable fan base existing for this series. And I know that this series constantly tops up when they do sort of they do questionnaires and they do like surveys and stuff, asking people, you know, what's a series that you would love to see a remake anime of and stuff like that, and Slayers constantly gets into that list. So it'll be interesting to see what this new sort of book does for the series. Will there be more anime? Will they restart the anime? Will we get this in English and actually get the entire series? Who knows, but it's going to be fun to see. At number 2, with 14,391 copies sold, Volume 8 of Biblia Koshodo no Jikan Teicho, or the case records of the Biblia second-hand bookstore, or it's also the antiquarian bookshop Biblia's case files. This one was on the list last week about a used bookstore, and the stories revolve basically around the proprietor of that store investigating the stories behind the antique books that get brought into her shop. There was a live-action series based on this series that aired on Crunchyroll. I don't know if they still have it on there, but it was actually really fun and it was really enjoyable, especially if you are sort of a bookish type person. It was kind of cool to sort of watch as they brought out, there was like, you know, not just the stories and the mysteries of it all, but also just the history of the books and the background on the literature and everything else was really interesting. This is a series that I would really like to get. I mean, it would be very, very different from pretty much anything else that we have in English. But again, I don't, unless this gets like an anime or gets something that really, really brings it to the forefront of the English-speaking fan base, I don't know just how likely that is to happen. Finally, at number 1, with 16,391 copies sold, Volume 1 of Mahoka Koko no Reitose, Shiba Tatsuya Ansatsu Keikaku, or The Irregular at Magic High School Plan to Assassinate Tatsuya Shiba. This one was number 1 last week on the list. I said then that it would probably be number 1 again. I'm right, but to be honest, it's really only based on the fact that the Irregular at Magic High School series always spends at least 2 to 3 weeks at number 1. They always seem to overcome pretty much any new competition that comes along. This one, though, is actually a spin-off of the Irregular at Magic High School. It's the first one that's ever happened, which is kind of interesting, seeing as the main series is well over 20 volumes long. This one about a girl who is not endowed with magic, but is actually an assassin of magicians, and this one of course has her aiming to take out Tatsuya. We do have the parent series, The Irregular Magic High School, being released in English by Yen On. I totally wouldn't be surprised to see them pick this up at some point. We did have an anime that was released for this, which streams on Crunchyroll, and there's also a manga of this, which is licensed for English release by Yen Press. So definitely you can get your fix of the Irregular at Magic High School, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see this eventually get released, but I don't know where this fits in with the main series. I don't know whether it could come out like anytime it would still fit, or whether we have to have at least another, you know, 5 whatever volumes released, because I think we're only at volume 9. Like volume 9 was just released in English in September, so I don't know where this sits in terms of the series timeline. So it may be sort of like, you know, New Testament, where it can't get licensed or won't be licensed until the main series has caught up to a certain point. This week, I want to say a special thanks to Mirage GSM, Jean-Luc Chartier, Ki Duong Nguyen, Bob Thompson, and Yuki Ali, and all the rest of my supporters on Patreon, whose continued support allows me to buy the novels that I review here on the channel, and allows me to pay for hosting for the Light Novel Podcast so that we can share it on multitude of platforms so as many people can hear it and get involved in light novels as possible. So those are your top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan for the week of October 15th to the 21st. The year 2018. It'll be interesting to see what happens next week. I don't really know what's coming out next week, so I don't know what kind of competition is in store for the Irregular spin-off. It'll be interesting to see whether it manages to have a 3rd week in the top spot or not. What do you think of these titles? I mean, there's not really anything new this week in terms of like brand new number 1s, so there's not anything really to comment in that way, but what are your thoughts of the series that are on the list this week? What are your thoughts in terms of which ones we don't have licensed that you would like to see? Let me know in those comments down below. So if you love light novels, or maybe you're just getting interested in them, you should consider subscribing. I do this countdown every single week, as well as multiple reviews, news, and the Light Novel Podcast is posted here as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.